Hello everyone, this is Geopolitics, and today we are going to see if there is any peace deal or any progress that has been made on the Russia-Ukraine war. As we know all, the European leaders had been to the White House yesterday, and they discussed a peaceful settlement for the Ukrainians in the Russia-Ukrainian war. What has been discussed is not clear yet, because we had Emmanuel Macron saying that they don't think that Putin is ready for peace. He had a meeting with Kristen Walker of NBC News, and they discussed Macron's thoughts about this issue, but Macron seems skeptical, and he's not sure yet that the Russians will accept the peace agreement. And
very severe consequences. Do you think a ceasefire is still possible?
I do hope. Let's call it once again truce or ceasefire, but we have to stop the killings. First, for humanitarian reasons. Second, because if we want sincere, reasonable, comprehensive talks in order to build a peace, you cannot organize this discussion, in the middle of the bombs. Look, today we were with President Zelensky. President Trump called President Putin at the end of our meeting, and we meet again right after this call. In the meantime, the Russian army organized a series of strikes on civilians in Ukraine. So it's impossible for an Ukrainian president and Ukrainian officials to have talks about peace as their country is being destroyed and as their civilians are being killed.
Let me ask you about the discussion over security guarantees.
Yes.
What exactly did you agree to as it relates to security guarantees? Does that mean European troops, and does that mean U.S. troops?
Look, I think for me it's a very important progress of the past few days that your president expressed a clear commitment of the U.S. to be part of the security guarantees. It's brand new. And last February, when I took the responsibility to gather a series of European leaders with President Zelensky in Paris, and we followed up in London, and we created this coalition of the willing. And it was a reaction to the feeling we had that we could see a temptation to go to a rapid peace, but without any guarantee for Ukraine. And we know what it means. It was Georgia 2008, but it was as well Crimea 2014. And there is full certainty that if you make any peace deal without security guarantee, Russia will never respect its words, will never comply with its own commitments. So it's for us totally critical, and this is an essential part of any deal for Ukraine and for the Europeans. This is for our own security. So
the other thing is, the USA president said that after the meeting of yesterday, the Ukrainian president with the European leaders, they had a call with the president of the USA, had a call with the Russian president after the meeting, and they discussed about meeting Russian president and Ukrainian president in order to talk about peace agreement and then security guarantees. It means they would create something like Article 5 of NATO that will secure Ukraine, but Ukraine will not join NATO, but they will create something like Article 5 that will protect Ukraine from any future invasion by the Russians.
European leaders. The deal that seems to be emerging here would require Ukraine to cede some territory to Russia in exchange for security guarantees from the U.S. and European allies, something similar to Article 5 NATO protections, even though Ukraine would remain outside of the NATO alliance. The president wrote on Truth Social, At the conclusion of the meetings, I called President Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at a location to be determined between President Putin and President Zelensky. After that meeting takes place, we will have a trilat, which would be the two presidents plus myself.
We'll see. And in a certain period of time, not very far from now, a week or 2 weeks, we're going to know whether or not we're going to solve this, or is this horrible fighting going to continue. We'll do our best to get it ended. And I believe you have two willing parties, and usually that's good news.
Even Marco Rubio, the Secretary General of the USA, has talked about it, and I'm going to put himself there, and we're going to hear what this security guarantee is going to look like.
Are they willing to put troops on the ground in Ukraine to cement this peace deal? Would that make Ukraine kind of like a NATO ally?
Well, what's being contemplated, look, any sovereign country in the world has a right to enter into security alliances with other countries. You know, it's not just NATO. We have such alliances with South Korea. We have it with Japan. Other countries have it with each other. And so I think everyone would acknowledge, including, by the way, for the first time, the Russian side, under President Trump's sort of pressure or, a suggestion, is that, in fact, a Ukraine post-conflict has a right to enter into security agreements with other countries. And we will work with our European allies and non-European countries, by the way, to build such a security guarantee. We're working on that right now. We'll continue to work on that. And that'll be something that'll have to be in place after a peace deal, so that Ukraine can feel safe moving forward. And we're coordinating that as we speak. We're involved in the coordination of it. So yeah, there are a number of countries that are willing to step forward and provide Ukraine security guarantees. But as the Ukrainians have said to us, and I think have said publicly, the strongest security guarantee they can come up with their future is to have a strong military moving forward. And that's the other dynamic that's changed. We're no longer giving Ukraine weapons. We're no longer giving Ukraine money. We are now selling them weapons, and European countries are paying for it through NATO. They are using NATO to buy the weapons and transfer them to Ukraine. That's another big change from the way this war was approached just just under the Biden administration, for example.
But as of now, nothing has been reached yet. No peace yet in Ukraine. There are still bombs being fired and people getting killed. So we hope in these three trilateral meeting, which is going to happen between Trump and Zelensky and Putin, we hope that it's going to be the end of this crazy war. Thank you, everyone, and have a great time. That is all is happening right now. So nothing yet, nothing concrete yet, which has been reached. But the leaders of Europeans who have been at the meeting with at the White House are Giorgia Meloni of Italy, French President Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the UK, and then Prime Minister of England, and the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, and we also had Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, and we had the President of Finland. So those were the leaders who had, even the leader of the European Commission, Madame Ursula von der Leyen. She had also been at the White House in this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good time.